Happiness, just like success, needs to be pursued. In last week's video, we talked about the importance of putting your focus on running your own race and not obsessing so much about the competition. Today, I want to share with you the second and perhaps the most vital commandment for becoming a happy professional. Thou shalt consistently and passionately assess and calibrate on the basic foundations for your happiness. How are we going to do that? Just like good lawyers, future lawyers, or friends of lawyers. If you are not a lawyer and hanging out with us on this channel, we're going to hold ourselves accountable by entering into a contract. And in this contract, on previously agreed upon intervals. It really depends on what the basic metrics of your happiness is, right? Maybe it can be once a day, once a week, every quarter. We are going to assess ourselves on those very things that we know are important and make us happy, and we're going to make sure we stay calibrated. We'll also include in the contract an emergency clause. So if things are getting rough and we need to pivot, we can quickly recalibrate and get well again. Before we start drafting our contract, if you're new to our channel, welcome, and I hope you consider joining our YouTube family by subscribing to the channel. So what problem are we exactly trying to address through this contract? What's our objective? You know that with life's obligations, it really feels like we have all these multiple balls in the air that we're juggling. The problem is when I speak to busy professionals, whether they are lawyers or graduate students or engineers, they talk about how busy they are and all these balls they're juggling, but they're really only focusing on one area. They're obsessing over their career. Talk to a law student and she or he will tell you, I have to read for classes, I have to start outlining, I need to take more practice exams, I really should take a leadership position at my student journal or student organization, and I need to do more networking so I can find a job for my first year summer or second year summer. Talk to a lawyer and they'll tell you they have their legal work, they really think they should do more business development and marketing. They really want to take that course so they can improve their skills. They have to be involved with recruiting new talent for their firm. And the problem with that is because our professional obligations and commitments are right in our face with tons of deadlines. But truly, the real balls we're juggling in the air are, besides our career, we have our physical well-being. We have our emotional and spiritual health. We have our relationships, our significant other, our family, our friends, managing our finances, and our true focus should be making sure that we're juggling correctly. And of course, at different parts of your life, for example, when you're in graduate school, it could be that you're really focusing mainly on one area, but you have to be careful because some of these other balls, if you drop them when you're juggling, they shatter. Especially your physical health and relationships, it would be really difficult, if not impossible, to fix and put it back together. So we want to make sure our success does not come at a hefty price that if we really think about it, we might not want to pay. Now that we all agree on the importance of this contract, let's draft the different parts of it. In the first part, you should include all the clauses you need to ensure consistent and passionate assessment and calibration of the basic metrics you need for your happiness. And you have to do 3 things to draft this part. First, think about and agree on what are the basic things that you need for your happiness. And you should know this. When these things are not existing in your life, you usually feel pretty out of order. Maybe it's sleep, maybe it's exercising, maybe it's prayer or meditation. Maybe it's making sure you connect and talk to your loved ones. Maybe it's all of the above. So write them down, that these are now the basic metrics of your happiness. And then ask yourself, at what time intervals are you going to actually sit down and assess how you've been doing on that? Have you been checking in with your loved ones? Have you gotten the 3 times a week exercise you know that is absolutely important for your well-being? So depending on what those metrics are, come up with that time frame, the timeline that you're going to check in with yourself, and put it on your calendar. The same calendar that you put your school readings, the brief that you have to file, that big milestone on your project. Put this on that same calendar. And the third part of this, the most important part of this, because I already know, I do this all the time. If we know what's important to us, and even if you just say, okay, I'm going to sit down once a week and I'm going to check in on this, what's the point if after a week I sit and I say, well, you didn't do it, you got too busy? Because our professional life, it's so in our face, right? With deadlines and people checking in and sending emails, it's hard to neglect that. So what we want to do is these basic metrics for your happiness we talked about, these other balls we're juggling that are important, we want to anchor it into our day in a way that will help us achieve our goal of actually completing them. So let me give you an example, a personal example, physical well-being. At different junctures in my life, whether it was grad school or at first becoming an attorney, or the worst, becoming an entrepreneur, where it's so personal, the failure and the success of your business, I would let my physical well-being slip. That included just not going to the doctor and getting checkups, as well as gaining weight. And at one point, I wasn't even sure it was possible for somebody who's 4'11". I weighed like 20-something pounds more than I do now. And I didn't even realize this until I saw a picture from a bar association event that I was involved with. This bar association. I saw this picture and I was like, this must be wrong. And I am not sharing this with you from a standpoint of vanity, but a standpoint of what you don't measure, you can't manage correctly. And I decided I don't want to do this yo-yo thing anymore because it became harder. Some of you are in your 20s and it's easier to pivot and recalibrate, but the foundation that is being neglected will basically set you up for hardships down the road. So I decided, it could be a simple goal as when the pandemic started was, as hard as it is, maybe the goal doesn't even have to be that I'm going to get super fit, but it's just that I'm going to maintain the status quo. I bought a scale, and I understand sometimes I'm exercising, muscle weighs more, but we all know when we are BSing ourselves, right? And I use that scale not to freak out that is like 3 pounds higher, 2 pounds lower, whatever, but I know like when things are, I know when I've been, neglecting the diet and the exercise, and also the measurement is going the other way, so I can pivot that back. And it's really easy. Every morning, as soon as I wake up, and I weigh myself. On a different level, on emotional well-being, we all know that mindfulness, deep belly breathing, or meditation are really important. But if we say, I'm going to meditate once a day, it will probably not happen. If I say I'm going to meditate once a day in the morning, that might still not happen, because I get up and my phone might be going off with, work stuff or the world stuff these days, right? But if I anchor it to something that will definitely happen, for example, I'm going to exercise mindfulness, do 3 minutes of deep breathing or 3 minutes of meditation before I eat lunch. The odds of that happening is way higher because now I know I am going to eat lunch, like I'm going to get hungry at some point. So whether I'm preparing it or it's in the microwave, I know that it's time to do those 3 minutes. And so the odds of actually doing what I need to do to keep the basics of what I need to stay calibrated and happy is going to increase. You can try this with anything, with relationships, with making sure every evening, no matter what's going on, at a certain point you stop working and you focus on another important area of your life. It is amazing that sometimes when we think we don't have time, if we just take a break, we will be able to go back to work and we'll be able to get what we were supposed to get done maybe half the time that we had originally thought, or it would take us if we were exhausted and truly depleted. So as a summary, agree on what are the things that are important to you personally, and what are the things that you usually tend to neglect that leaves you miserable. How often you're going to assess it based on that specific habit, and anchor it. If you're interested to learn more about anchoring, 2 of the books I have linked below, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, I think it gives you a really nice overview of how to manage your time. But one of my favorite personal development books of all time is Atomic Habits. It's linked below. And this concept of anchoring. In the second part of the contract, we're going to include our emergency clause. And that should include 2 things. First, what we should look out for. These are the signs where we need to pause, pivot, and recalibrate. And then some ideas for doing so. What are the warning signs? You should look at your past whenever that, these basic metrics of happiness that's important to you. If you've neglected it before, or sometimes when you just feel diminished, how do you feel? Maybe you wake up 1 too many days not excited to get out of the bed. Maybe, God forbid, you self-medicate and drink too much and find yourself complaining and becoming, just really bitter. Maybe your friends keep telling you you're becoming a Debbie Downer. Maybe your mom is complaining too much about you not caring, or your significant other. But depending on what metrics you put down that are important to you besides your career that you want to make sure you pay attention to, put some warning signs based on experience, as well as warning signs that your critical, intelligent mind can think of. Bring the same passion and dedication you have to graduate school, to your career, to also you. I mean, after all, what's more important than you? So put that on paper so you can be on the lookout for those issues. Besides warning signs that should alert you to recalibrate, you should also put ideas for recalibrating. For example, one of the things that I tend to do is if I'm working too hard and after a certain point I find that I make small but silly mistakes, and if I make 2-3 mistakes in a row in a short amount of time, that is my sign that I pause. And usually then when I'm assessing, I realize I have been neglecting some other area that is important for my well-being. And then I make myself take a day off. Maybe like go on a hike. I might change location and go to the beach and work more on planning and big picture stuff. So changing locations usually boosts me up. For other people, it could be exercising, hiking, praying, just going on a weekend trip. If you want to make sure you keep your relationship alive, and you saw the warning sign that your significant other or your mom is getting, really feels neglected, and now you've identified that, you could be the same way sometimes you just focus on taking that exam. You could just take an entire day and make it about that person, and take them somewhere, spend some quality time, watch some movies, look at some old albums, but truly put your focus, whether it's for 2 hours, half a day, a weekend, on recalibrating that area. So to summarize, make sure you identify what are the basic things you need, your foundations for happiness besides your career, and agree with yourself that you're going to have a plan to assess it, anchor it to different parts of your day. So to the extent we can prevent getting out of balance. But life happens, no matter how much you try, you're human, so it's going to happen that you're going to get out of balance. Have an emergency clause and a plan so you can identify the warning sign and you can recalibrate as quickly as you can. This is super important because 1, it is your well-being. 2, but on a second layer, this is important because we're practicing perspective and mindfulness that brings us back to the moment, that as important as that exam is, that important as that brief is that you have to file, or whatever work project you have, it brings you back to the moment, because this moment is really your life. And then finally, this is important because it doesn't just impact your happiness. If you get out of calibration, I promise you that it's going to diminish your productivity and your success. And if it gets really bad, it can even destroy it. I hope that this helps you in your journey to becoming not just a successful, but a balanced, happy, joyful professional. Until we meet again, stay well. And if you haven't already done so, please go ahead and give this video a thumbs up. I appreciate it, and YouTube algorithm definitely appreciates it.